Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at Swiping Through History. I have the wonderful Mike Ingram with me once again. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Excited about this one. So today we are talking about the Battle of Mortimer's Cross in a little bit more detail. We had the documentary released last week, which was great. And there's a few talking points about that battle that we wanted to go into a little bit more detail with you today. So first and foremost, superstition is key. It's kind of at the heart of this battle. It's the one thing that everybody remembers when they talk about this battle. Oh, the Battle of Mortimer's Cross. Is that the one with the three sons? You know, all of that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, Mike, the three sons, what realistically would have happened on that morning? And Edward coming up with this kind of idea of believing it was either the Holy Trinity or representing the three sons of York. Would that have been something far-fetched for him to come up with, or would that have been something that he would have actually believed to the very core?
The medieval people as a whole were incredibly superstitious, and everything they looked for signs.
Mm-hmm.
Signs to mean anything under the sun. How you interpret them is always a different story.
Yeah.
So I think actually the fact that you do get such an unusual event as a parhelion appearing in the sky must have rattled everybody in one form or another. And because it's such a rare opportunity and something that's rare that happens anyway, no one, I wouldn't have thought anybody would have known what it actually meant.
Yeah.
Was it a good omen or a bad omen? Edward picks on it. Yorkists are always good publicists anyway.
Right.
And they're very good at their spin. And if you look at all sort of the documents, you can see it.
And
Whether Edward
carry on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Whether Ed would come up with the idea personally about the three sons of York, or whether it was one of his vicars or somebody else, we don't know. But obviously Edward takes it up on board, and the three sons of York, and the Holy Trinity, and they all start to connect together, which is a very positive thing for the Yorkists.
I mean, this is something that that kind of blows my mind slightly. And it happens at different points in the Wars of the Roses, is when you realize how young some of these men were, and women, at the points of these battles and the things that take place. You know, I mean, and Edward is 17 years old at this point. It's almost like a coming of age story for him, isn't it? It's this moment of kind of, you know, he's just lost his father. He's just lost one of his younger brothers. You know, we're talking about a month before, if not less. I think it's a few weeks before, actually.
Yes.
You know, so that's, number one, is a heavy emotional burden he's carrying with him. And then he has an army that he has to take out actively and stop Jasper Tudor rendezvousing with Queen Margaret. I mean, if Jasper Tudor gets to Queen Margaret, surely it's over for the Yorkists.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's completely done by that point. And don't forget that a lot of the other people who were fighting with Edward would have been a similar sort of age. We're not talking that many older, grizzly, battle-hardened troops. There would have been a few, but a lot of them would have been Edward's age, you know, his companions and the like.
I mean, it's always the way with war and battles throughout history. Is it's often the younger men going off to fight. You know, you see it in the Second World War with you know, a lot. But at the same time, it's quite rare that you have such young men and women kind of commanding the field, as it were, leading the men. I mean, you know, the one thing Edward did have was his size, being 6'4". You know, he is a big lad anyway, so, you know, it doesn't take much, I imagine, to inspire inspire his troops from his appearance. But it's still, you know, that's a lot of pressure on a young man's shoulders. And so Mortimer's Cross, let's look at this battle specifically. Obviously, the story, we have a number of interpretations, but that's about it. We haven't identified the actual location of the battlefield, so we can't, until we do so, we can't really answer any more questions than the original sources can give us. But
No.
in terms of the overall picture, it's quite significant, really, because it's in the midst of this, well, we'll call it a campaign that's going going on across England at this point. Can you enlighten us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so what you've got is Warwick remains in London with his force, supposedly looking after the king, but as we'll see in a future episode, that doesn't quite go according to plan. You've also had Richard of York up in the north for whatever reason, which again we don't really know. The only one that we actually get some semblance of an idea is the fact that Ed was gone over there to defend the Welsh marches and to stop the Welsh joining in that direction. So tactically, was it the best thing to do? Possibly. But in hindsight, as we now have, would the Tudors have done what the Tudors have done or did if it wasn't for the fact that Owen Tudor, their father, was executed quite brutally at the end of the battle? If he had still been alive, would Jasper Tudor gone his way, and so on and so forth? So yes, so they're key moments as far as what happens. But you never find again after this the Yorkist army splitting itself up. It always fights as one army after this period. So perhaps that's a hint that they learnt their lessons and they suddenly become even more professional.
Right.
At that point. And they don't lose a battle again, really. And that's a bit of a spoiler.
Oh, spoiler alert there, Mike.
Yeah, but
Well,
they don't really lose again.
It's something that I always find really frustrating. I am a little bit of a Yorkist. Excuse the bias. I try not to put it into anything, but like they win everything really. They don't lose much, but they lose the important one. like the ones that are key, they seem to lose. The others, they're fine. They just they go along, they win them all, you know. But the one that really matters at the end, they just can't do it. So with also one more question, I think, about Mortimer's Cross, which is I think is kind of key, but I'd love to hear your opinions on it. Is that Edward is stationed in Ludlow, and he's in Ludlow for a while before the Lancastrian army actually invade England, you know, through Wales. Obviously, Ludlow is a stronghold for the Yorkists. It's very much, you know, the heart of their territory, as we've seen before with Ludford Bridge. So would that have been a significant advantage?
No, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think it would have made much difference at all.
Okay.
Because the Welsh are the Welsh, it was the Welsh border. English and Welsh have been fighting each other since time immemorial. So, you know, so I don't think there's a huge amount. And also don't forget that on Edward's side, and his leading commander is William Herbert, who controls a large part of South Wales anyway.
Right.
And he goes on, he plays a key part in another one of the later battles, Edgecut in the rebellions. So yeah, so there's a large, there is probably as many Welsh on each side.
Okay.
When you think about it, or not far off.
Yeah.
And I actually haven't looked at the figures, but it'd be interesting to look at how many were from North Wales and how many were from South Wales, because it might have been, and again, this is just purely speculation, just something I've just thought of while we've been talking. It's almost potentially a North Wales v South Wales battle.
That would be interesting.
Because if the Herberts control South Wales, their headquarters is Pembroke. And then obviously the Tudors all come down from North Wales.
Okay. There's another layer already, just through discussing it, that kind of comes out there.
Yeah, that just literally just popped into my head while we were talking. I apologise for that.
No, that's all right. I suppose the one other thing that is really makes me curious is this. We found there is a helm, a Barbute helm, that has been found in the River Lug. Now, first of all, I just want to say I think it looks more like a Saleh than a Barbute. But then again, I'm not the expert here. But that's just my own.
Looking at the pictures, I'd agree with you. I think it's a Saleh.
Yeah, it's got the curve and the shape of a Saleh that a Barbute doesn't really have.
No.
But it's okay. We'll take it as a Barbute because that's what they claim it to be. That was found in the River Lug and is dated to effectively 1461. I mean, it's dated of the period. Now, a helm isn't a piece of equipment that would just be being carried around on a regular basis, and it's most certainly not a piece of equipment you would just drop in the river by mistake, surely.
No.
So that must mean that it has to be linked to the Battle of Mortimer's Cross.
Yeah, one would think so.
Speculation.
Yeah, there's just too much going on along there.
But are there any other battles or skirmishes that you can think of in your breadth of wisdom that it could be linked to?
No, I can't. But it could be part of the route.
Well, the thing is, the route, in my mind, I would connect the route to the battle.
Yeah.
Because it's the same day or the same few days. And it's just an amazing concept and idea for me that this Saleh, or Barbute, sorry, that is in this museum was actually there at the battle. Someone was looking through the eye slots of that helmet on that day.
Yes.
Think about what that person would have seen. I just think that's quite something, and it's in the Hereford Museum and Art Gallery, but there's very little mention about it. It's just there in a cabinet. Go and check it out. Do go and check it out. It's awesome to see, but it's just amazing that these little pockets of our history are scattered all over the country, all over the world, and very often underplayed massively. The significance of these finds they're just completely overlooked.
Yeah, and it's the same with the Edward IV roll. Soon after he becomes king, he produces an ancestry roll. Takes him all the way back to Brutus.
Wow.
And it's a massive roll. It's a really interesting roll. But that now lives in America. So we don't get the chance to see it like we used to.
Well, all the American viewers, you guys have that one.
Go and have a look at it because it's well worth it, and it's got some lovely illustrations of knights of the period on it.
Oh wow, that's very cool. One more thing about the Saleh, Barbute. I keep doing that. One more thing about the Barbute helm, which I thought was interesting, is if you go and have a look, there is this like hole in the back of the head, like right here. That is obviously it was found in the river, and the river has done its work on it, and it's kind of parts of it have disintegrated and all that kind of stuff. But there is this big kind of hole in the middle of the back of the head, and I just have this image of like a poleaxe coming down on someone trying to run away and just caving, the head in or whatever. And it might not be that. It might not be, but it looks a little bit like that, and that's kind of, again, you're suddenly looking at something that 500 years ago, over 500 years ago, is would have happened in one moment. All that emotion and kind of adrenaline and feeling would have been so real and so powerful for the men involved then. And
it's something we forget about is the actual horrors of war. Particularly at this period, because it's incredibly personal. You have to get very much in someone's face. And there is one account after the Battle of Barnet, and they talk about people coming away from the battle with noses missing, ears missing, severe wounds. And a lot of those people would eventually die from gangrene and septicemia and those sorts of things. So when we're merrily talking away about deaths on battlefields, we mustn't forget that a lot more would have died a month, 6 months afterwards.
Well, I'm just thinking the numbers in my mind at the moment. I mean, we've had in these 3 battles, you have thousands of deaths, so far in the Wars of the Roses since 1455 and that first Battle of St. Albans, you've had tens of thousands of people being killed across the country. And obviously when you look at percentage to the actual full population, of the time. That's a lot of people. One last thing before we go, the picture behind me today is actually of Wigmore Castle. It's a
Very
little bit
nice it is
further,
too.
it is a little bit further north of the battlefield. The battlefield is actually between Wigmore Castle and Croft Castle, but it is a beautiful ruin. It is kind of really at one with the landscape around. And if you are in the area, if you're going to explore the battlefield site, you know, do check out the castle. It's well worth a visit, and the views are absolutely beautiful from the top. So make sure you do that as well if you get a chance. But thank you, Mike, so much for being here with us today and talking us through a little bit more detail. And
My pleasure as always.
You're a legend, mate. You really are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers.